Hi guys, Dark Aperture here, and today I'm back with another episode in How to Buy Parts for Your PC. This new episode is about RAM. Now RAM is not that hard to buy. Choices aren't that broad, and it's quite easy to make your decision, and it doesn't take much time to install or replace either. RAM is pretty great. Now, first of all, laptop memory is straightforward. Just get laptop memory that suits you. It'll apply to what we have for regular desktop memory, server memory, Mac memory, and system-specific memory. Although there's mostly desktop and laptop memory that's the most widespread stuff. Now, first off is RAM capacity. What RAM capacity do you really need? My answer is, for gaming, the max is 8 gigs. You don't need any more than that. Well, 4 gigs can do you fine really well, provided you only run the game and you don't have much windows or tabs open. It's a little tighter of a noose than 8 gigs of RAM, but if you're only going to run a game, not going to have anything running in the background, it should run just fine. Even when maxing the latest games, it only uses 3.6 gigs of RAM the most, and that's probably with quite a few programs in the background. Now, 8 gigs, I'd say, is the max for gaming, because you really don't need any more, as you can run a game maxed out and still have room to look at stuff. Like, say you want to have a bunch of programs monitoring things running in the background. You want to be uploading a video in the background. You want to be doing just a lot of things while you're playing your game. Then you want to get 8 gigs of RAM. Now, what about above that? 12 gigs is not practical, but I'd say a good amount for video editing would be 16 gigs of RAM. 16 gigs is also good if you want to run virtual machines, because you'll need to allocate quite a bit of memory. Basically, if you're going to do things like video editing, you want to get 16 gigs of RAM. Now, in my opinion, the absolute max for video editing would be 32 gigs. If you're feeling extreme, and you have the motherboard that has 8 RAM slots, you can get a 64 gigs of RAM. Very expensive, and you're not going to find yourself using that much RAM much often. But in the future, it's not going to run obsolete or anything as fast as 32 gigs will. 48 gigs is good. It's not impractical. I'd say it's the absolute extreme max for now. Now, what about RAM speeds? RAM speeds, plain and simple, do not matter. I saw this video from Jay's 2 cents. He also showed videos on RAM capacities and how they affect gaming. It's not CPU physics scores change right around 5 FPS according to his videos. From 4 gigs to 8 gigs of RAM, and 16 gigs there's no difference. So, RAM speeds, there is absolutely no difference. Maybe like 1 FPS difference between like 1066 and 1600. Maybe a 5 FPS difference between 1066 and 3000, which is starting to show up. You could have gone. It's just perfectly fine. You could get 1066 RAM and your games will still run fine. However, that doesn't mean you should go with 1066. I'd say 1333 is the minimum if you want it to feel smooth at the same time. There's still no frame rate difference, so enhanced gaming will do you just fine. There's really not much of a need for 1866 and above. I have 1866 memory. I did see a tiny difference, but it was marginable. Not really anything special, but enhanced gaming, this category, 1066 to 1600, just fine. 1600 is the max you'll ever need. Now let's also consider one exception. What if you're running integrated graphics? Most integrated graphics do not ship with their own built-in VRAM, so no GDDR5. That already impacts the performance, but that means that you're using system memory. In that case, RAM speeds do matter. This 1600 is a bare minimum in this case, for especially an APU system. If your memory is like 1333, it's going to bog down performance versus 1866 by like 15 frames per second. A much bigger gap. 1866. And let's say 1600 is like the bare minimum. It will still do fine, be like a 5 FPS difference versus 1866. 1866 is a good performance standard. It's in the middle, but the top I go is 2133 because if you're running an integrated system, you don't want to spend too much money. So, that's pretty much it for RAM. Well, except for one more thing. What about servers? In that case, I'd say you could use quite a bit of RAM. Servers, you would probably need quite a lot of RAM. Not necessarily that fast, but quite a lot of it, since servers will be running, maybe you're running a game server for Minecraft. You'll be have like around 50 players if it's relatively popular, running around doing all sorts of things that'll stress it out and require a lot of RAM. That's pretty much it. IronNet, brands I'd recommend: Corsair, Crucial, Kingston, Patriot, and G.Skill. Especially G.Skill and Corsair in Kingston. I haven't heard too much about Patriot and Crucial. I've heard they're good though. Now, that's pretty much it. Another thing to know is that RAM prices have come up. The 4 gigs of DDR3 1333 is a little more expensive now from Corsair, but no big deal. Oh yeah, I also forgot to talk about RAM heatsinks. Now here's the thing. If you're running a small board like Micro ATX or a low-end ATX board, chances are the RAM's gonna conflict with a giant aftermarket heatsink. That's where you have low profile memory. Low profile memory will not interrupt any large heatsink, as the heatsink isn't going to stick out or anything, and it'll just slide in nicely under the aftermarket cooler. It might be a bit hard to get out, but it'll still work. So if you're going to get a big heatsink, best play it safe and get low profile memory. Alright, that's all. Subscribe to me, Dark Aperture, if you like this video, and goodbye.